It says stop video. Okay, your video screen must be closed. You understand?
IT, am I good to go?
Yes, you can begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It is November 10th, and this is a meeting of Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee. My name is Bud Friel, and I'll be chairing the meeting this afternoon. If I could have other council members that are on the line identify themselves, I would appreciate it.
Councilwoman Linda Gray, 1st District.
Loretta Walsh, council member at large.
And we have Cyril Adams, a council member at large.
And
yes, I'm here, Bud. I thought yeah, Cyril Adams, member at large.
Thank you. Any other council members?
good evening, Chris Johnson, 7th District.
Chris, thank you. Okay, so we have enough for a quorum. We're going to go ahead and get started. The original agenda had five items, but we're going to hold the third one, ordinance number 20-028, an ordinance to amend Chapter 44 of the City Code to provide a property tax abatement for low to moderate income long-term homeowners following a 50% more property tax increase on their primary residence. That will be held today. So we'll go to the first item on the agenda, ordinance number 20-048, an ordinance to authorize and approve an agreement between the City of Wilmington and Paymentus Corporation for an online payment processing and bill presentment system. And I believe we have our Director of Finance, Mr. Taylor, with us.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This request is to approve the contract. It's a multi-year contract with Paymentus Corporation. Paymentus is our current online payment and bill presentment provider. If you've ever paid your bills online, they are the ones who create the functionality for customers to go in, be able to make their payments with their credit cards and the like. We went through a rigorous RFP process, and we had, I believe, 7 vendors compete. Paymentus obviously won the award, and we had developed a contract with them. It was reviewed by law, and it's presented to you today. They get paid on the basis of the number of transactions that come through their system. As you recall, we also have suspended the payments for customers. They do no longer have to pay the service fee for electronic transaction through the Paymentus portal. With the award of this contract, we've also asked Paymentus for some upgrades to the payment portal system. They've done, we are going to be working on a couple processes. One includes allowing for our customer service center, Randstad, to be able to accept payments without having to be transferred back to the city in order to make the payment. 2, we're going to create a common look and feel and a single pane of glass, so to speak, for customers to be able to view all of their bills online and be able to make payments based on certain selections that they make. And 3rd, we're going to be able to make it, instead of modules and having to go out of one payment system to go into another payment system, they'll be able to use this pane of glass, this one look and feel, to be able to see all of their accounts rolled up. And lastly, we asked them to, we were having some issues with regard to service engagement with them. They've given us 2 new account managers who I think are going to be, is very promising. They really want us to be partners. So through this RFP process, we think we're getting a better stream of service with them without any interruption to customers being able to make payments. So we're simply requesting that that City Council approve this 3-year agreement, and hopefully we're going to see some real improvement in terms of the payment module.
Okay, so it's a 3-year agreement. They're paid based on the number of transactions. Is that a percentage or a flat little fee, or how does that work?
In some cases, it's a percentage. It depends on if it's a credit card. For instance, there's a credit card payment that gets transferred to us through Paymentus. So they have arrangements with credit card companies. That is on a percentage basis. It's similar to what you would run with a credit card payment, say at a retail shop. The remainder are fixed fees for the number of transactions that come through the system.
Can you tell us, you said you had 7 vendors. Can you tell us what you looked at to measure one vendor against another?
We looked at, price was one consideration. Others were consideration of ease of implementation, meaning that if we had a vendor who was new to us, how quickly they could get a payment portal up and running, who their partner was in terms of the credit card payment merchant accounts. 3, if they were willing to make some evolution in terms of the improvements that we were talking about, such as this single pane of glass approach. Other is how big they were. Right now, Paymentus is servicing, they've got partnerships with Amazon and Walmart. Paymentus is a very robust platform. And this is what they do. This is their business. We had other vendors come in who had some similar platforms, but they also had other pieces of business that this wasn't in their wheelhouse. We also had a couple of banks that had applied, but we felt that with regard to integration of this system, going with somebody who had a lot of experience with this would be helpful. The other consideration was how fast it would have taken us to get a new portal, a new vendor on board, and a new portal built. We think it's prudent that since Paymentus is our current provider, we leveraged that in order to make sure that customers would not be without a way to pay electronically. So they're able to go easily transition from one contract year into the next, and they're going to be giving us these upgrades.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I am home alone and my dog is very protective. And anybody that walks by the front of the house, she starts barking away. So you're going to hear her participate at different times during the meeting. Council members, questions? Council members, any questions for Mr. Taylor? I'm not seeing any hands go up. Okay, let me see what we have here from the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to ask a question? And that would be, there's only 2 on there, so I'm going to assume no. Wait a minute, I see a hand here. Mr. Adams.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a real quick question. Any service fees charged for this, and are they paid by the, in this case, the taxpayer, or and absorbed by the city, or how's that work, Mr. Taylor?
They are absorbed by the city. We, a year and a half ago, waived the service fee. Before, individuals were charged a $3.75 service fee for every time they went into the electronic portal. We waived that because we wanted to shift the customers away from paper payments. Paper payments are labor intensive. They also result in delay of posting of funds, and of course, the interest related to the funds being posted in our bank accounts. So we felt it was necessary to take this barrier down. We are collecting some information on the number of electronic filing. I will tell you, with the pandemic in place, our payments have gone up. Electronic payments have gone up considerably. At one point, I believe that we had a 35% electronic payment rate. Now we have close to an 80% electronic payment rate. Obviously, we've closed the building, and people have gravitated to the electronic platform in order to be able to make their payments. So good news is, the short answer is we're picking up the tab for the payment, not the customer. And it's resulted in an increase in, we think resulted in an increase in the electronic payment.
Well, good. 80% is a real good number. Hopefully you'll stay there. So just to reiterate,
Yeah.
if they get a $79 bill, they pay $79, not 79 plus 3 and $3.75. 79 is 79 if they use the portal. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Correct.
I appreciate that.
I just want to make sure I understand though, but if they use a credit card, they have to pay a credit card charge.
No,
No?
absolutely. Actually, we absorb the credit card fee.
Oh, okay, great. All right, thank you. Any other questions from council members at this time? And there was nothing from the public.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could you recognize me?
I'm sorry. Yes,
Candace.
we are joined by Council President Hanifa Shabazz. Did you have any questions, President
No,
Shabazz?
I just want to be recognized and attended, sir.
All right, we've also been joined, I just saw, by Councilmember Sam Guy, Councilmember at Large. Is there anybody else I missed? I don't think so. Okay, I'll accept a motion to move ordinance 20-048, an ordinance to authorize and approve an agreement between the City of Wilmington and Paymentus Corporation for an online payment processing and bill presentment system out of this committee into the full council for a vote, I believe, on the 19th of November.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. On the question, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody not voting? Okay. We'll go on to our second. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your vote.
We'll go on to our second item, and this is going to be, I believe, substitute number 1, ordinance 20-043. An ordinance to amend chapter 40 of the city code to permanently add Juneteenth to city employee holidays with pay. Mr. Guy, you've joined us. Mr. Guy, can you unmute your microphone?
Yes, this is straightforward. The last time this legislation was at this committee, there was a question that came up as to what was the cost. And so what I learned, they've already attached, they should have attached the cost to the bill by now. I requested that. And what I did is I had them pulled up the historical data. The mayor just now declared Juneteenth a holiday. So at first they were giving me a hard time about how to compute it. And then I told them, well, just tell me how much the mayor spent on Juneteenth. How much did it cost? That's the best data we have. So that's what that is. That's what the attachment is. I think it was $250K. When he declared Juneteenth a holiday. So that was what I was asked at the last meeting, to get a financial cost statement.
Mr. Guy, I've been asked to ask you to amend the fiscal impact and delete the first sentence, and I'll read it here. It says, the mayor declared Juneteenth 2020 a City of Wilmington holiday. I'm being told that he did not declare it a holiday, that they sent out a press release saying that they would close the building in honor of Juneteenth, but he never issued an executive order or anything to declare for a holiday. So all I'm asking is if you would have a motion to delete that first sentence out of the fiscal impact statement.
I don't mind, but that's where they got the data from.
Yeah.
I
All
didn't
right,
get the
so
data.
we have a motion to delete the following sentence. The mayor declared Juneteenth 2020 City of Wilmington holiday from the fiscal impact statement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, on the question, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not voting? Okay. Mr. Guy, did you have anything else you wanted to add to your comments?
That's all. That's what I was asked.
Okay,
They need a
council
fiscal
members, are there any questions from council members?
Mr. Friel?
Uh,
I raised my hand.
Councilmember Walsh, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. I think it's a good piece of legislation. My only problem is the amount of money that it's going to cost the city. Only because we have no idea what all of this is costing us at this point. So I'm just making a friendly suggestion that we drop one of the other holidays, especially since this has to be presented to all the unions with their labor, who have labor contracts, but just drop one of the holidays to make it more equitable for the city.
Okay. What I'm going to do now is, before I go on to any other council members, we have the Director of Human Resource Department, Charlotte Barnes, with us. And I'm just going to ask her to comment on it, and then I'll come right back to council members. Ms. Barnes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, all honorable members of council. As a segue from what Councilmember Walsh did mention, this ordinance would apply immediately to non-union employees. However, because holidays are, one, a term and condition of employment, and two, there are provisions in every union contract for holidays, this must be negotiated with each of the unions. The city cannot unilaterally impose a holiday on a union. Again, it must be negotiated. And so, we respectfully, would ask if the effective date could be after we finish that process. I will immediately begin a process, assuming this would pass, I would immediately begin a process with each of the unions. But what I would respectfully not want to be the case is if non-union employees have off, but the other employees don't necessarily have off because it has not been negotiated with them. So if there's any way the effective date could be delayed until such time that it applies to everybody, that would be my respectful request. But to Councilmember Walsh's point, it must be negotiated with all of the unions.
Well, we're going to have to change the effective date because it already went by. Do you want to give us any kind of timeline, or when you think you could, your best guesstimate, or when you think you could have these discussions?
Again, I'd be immediately having the conversations. If I had to say a date, I'd probably respectfully ask for at least by May 1 of next year. It should not take that long. I'm believing that it wouldn't take that long, but I wouldn't want to be in a situation where we could not come to an agreement. So I would say May 1st could give me enough time.
Okay. All right.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem to me. You just want a May 1st effective date?
Yes, sir, Mr. Councilmember Guy.
That's fine by me. I don't have no problem with that.
Let me do other comments from council members, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Guy, and we can make that amendment. Next up would be Linda Gray.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a friendly amendment, or maybe it doesn't have to be the form of an amendment, but in section 40-332A, all the other holidays are listed with the date first, then the name of the holiday, and then what it's known as. So I would just like to add June 19th, Juneteenth, known as Freedom Day. Just those additions, because all the other holidays identified are identified that way. So I'm asking Councilman Guy. The other thing is, doesn't the city have holidays that a number of holidays where you can select one or two? Is that a program the city has? Floating holidays?
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, because I don't recall.
Yes, there are 2 floating holidays that City of Wilmington employees enjoy, exclusive of public safety. but employees have 2 floating holidays. For those of us who've been around for quite some time, the city used to celebrate both Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday.
Yes.
And several years ago, we just defaulted to President's Day and made Lincoln's birthday a floating holiday. Additionally, the city used to observe Columbus Day. Columbus Day was taken away, and now that is our floating holiday. So 2 holidays are floating holidays.
Meaning that you can select them and get paid one of them, or meaning that
Meaning that floating days are a day off of work. You can take that day on the actual Columbus Day or on what was Lincoln's birthday at that time, or you can take those days any other day you choose to.
and you get paid for it?
That is correct. That's what the holiday is. It's a paid holiday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
all.
Mr. Adams, you're up. Councilmember Adams?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Friel. Just so I have an understanding that if we move this effective date, they still are going to get this holiday in 2021, right? The effective
Yes,
day becomes May 1, they still get the holiday in June then, right?
Because the holiday would take place in June. But again, I want to be very clear that the ordinance, once it passed, is immediately effective for non-union employees. It is not effective until it's negotiated with the collective bargaining unions.
I understand that, Ms. Barnes, but the mayor again could close the building in honor of June 13th, and then they get the day off anyway then, right?
Well, not those that work would get the day off. Those that don't work, there's a separate provision in collective bargaining agreements that speaks to if the mayor closes offices for a particular reason, which is where, when he did it this past time, that's where the cost came from. So it wouldn't be a holiday, it would be a separate provision that governs the pay and the day off.
And the purpose of my questions is just to assure that the people get the holiday in 2021. Okay, and so it just seems to me that, you know, we're not trying to do anything here to impede them from getting this holiday in 2021.
No, Council Member Adams, that is not the directive that I've been given. The directive that I've been given is, should this legislation pass, I am directed at that point to see what I need to do to make sure that with the unions. So there is no effort to not pass it on. There's no effort there.
Okay, and there's no effort to make sure that this holiday is not granted in 2021 then, right? They're going to get the holiday in 2021 is what you're saying.
Absolutely, non-union employees will get it. I have to negotiate with the other union. I have to negotiate with the unions. And I'm going to begin, once this passes, I will begin that process. It's a little premature for me to start the process until the legislation pass. Assuming it passed, I will reach out to every one of the collective bargaining unions to begin a process to negotiate this.
I guess that's as straight as an answer from an administration we can get. Okay, no more questions, Mr. Friel. Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Ms. Barnes. So if just following up on Councilman Adams' question, so if this passes, this ordinance passes, and the unions can't negotiate or can't successfully negotiate this, then it would be a situation, I guess, it would be an untenable situation where non-union employees would have the day off per the ordinance, and then union employees would have to work. I mean, is that what would happen?
Well, potentially, yes. However, please know that the public safety unions would be working anyway, because they're a 24-hour operation, yes.
But it could be the other unions would have to work and non-union employees would be off. And that's not ideal, is it?
That is not ideal. No, it's not. And I will tell
Okay.
you that when we had the situation where we just, what I just described, when we converted previous holidays to floating days, that did not all take place at one time. It had to be negotiated. So we went through a couple of years where we had some people without floating days and some people with the old holidays, and you had situations where there were staff here, but the supervisor was going to be off. So that's why I respectfully asked to give us time to get everything aligned. You don't want to have that
So,
where one group is on and one group is off. You don't want to have that situation.
and I'm just thinking back to, again, thinking about my knowledge of the HR policies. And so if indeed you had the situation where non-union employees were off and union employees were made to work, wouldn't they be eligible for overtime costs, or would it be extra costs?
Well, it's not a holiday that's recognized in their contract. So I would have to go through, again, each contract has different provisions. And so this holiday is not listed as a holiday in their contract. Okay. But if the city is closed, that triggers some provisions in the public safety contracts. All of which why it's a separate issue for each bargaining agreement. And again, I will, assuming this pass, as soon as it does, I will work to negotiate with each of the bargaining units, how we resolve this matter. But obviously, it's a benefit, so there's going to be a cost associated with it, which is what Councilmember Guy mentioned, roundly $250.
Thank you very much.
And I think what Councilmember Walsh, the suggestion Councilmember Walsh had was perhaps trade Juneteenth for a floating holiday. I think that's what I heard you say. Is that correct, Councilmember Walsh?
Actually, I wanted to address that for a moment again. Yes.
Okay.
You're up, Councilmember Walsh. Go ahead.
Well, that was the point I was going to make, that getting back to the money portion, which this holiday would cost $249,000. I think this holiday is actually a very important part of our history that was not taught in history lessons in our schools, as most of our history is outrageous for all the groups that we left behind. So I have no problem with the holiday itself at all. But currently, without anybody doing anything, and this is the type of thing that people who run their own businesses or people that work for private companies, right off the bat, someone working for the city of Wilmington gets 12 holidays and 2 floating. So that is 2 full weeks of vacation before you've even had to earn vacation. And that taking one of those floating holidays, I think, would be the answer to everything, because then it would even up that people would have, 14 holidays then instead of 15. Does that sound right, Charlotte?
That's correct. Because I think there's 12 paid holidays and 2 floating holidays. And then in an even numbered year, there's the extra holiday.
I think that should be acceptable.
For election day.
If the sponsor accepts it.
I'm not sure I even understand exactly what you're requesting, Councilmember Walsh.
Well,
I think if I may, Councilmember Walsh, if I can try to articulate it.
I'm taking away President's Day, but go ahead.
But it still would have to be negotiated.
It would have to be negotiated, but I think what I hear Councilmember Walsh is saying is right now there's 2 floating holidays. I thought I heard her suggest that we would switch out one of the floating holidays for Juneteenth. So therefore, there's not an increase in the overall number of holidays city employees receive. It's just switching out one of those floaters for Juneteenth.
Exactly.
Still would
I
need to be.
understand that, but you still have to negotiate that.
again, still would need to be negotiated, but the cost would be perhaps minimized because you're just switching days off.
Right. I mean, Councilmember Walsh, are you asking us to put another clause in here?
Well, I was asking the sponsor if he would be willing to do that.
Mr. Guy would have to answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have there's two things on the table. One, Councilwoman Gray had a recommendation.
Right, got that.
And what she said, that was not a problem to me at all.
Right.
So I wanted to take care of that one and then talk about the one Councilwoman Walsh is talking about.
Well, we're gonna need, Mr. Guy, we're gonna need, and we can wait till the end, we're gonna need another amendment to address Councilmember Gray's request and then the effective date. But we can do that as one when we're done, when we're ready.
Okay, those two I don't have a problem with. What I'm not really interested in is I'm not interested in having Juneteenth in the middle of a conversation about, well, let's get rid of this holiday or let's get rid of this holiday. So I'm not trying to get into that conversation. I've been on the executive side of this kind of conversation. And so when I heard the HR director say that she's already been given her marching orders that should this pass, then she's going to start negotiations, and she's expecting that she needs till May, then I'm satisfied just as that is. Now, as far as what Councilwoman Walsh was saying, if she want to participate in the negotiations with HR and the mayors and the unions on how they do that, because I'm not going to be involved in the negotiation with the union. But I'm just saying right now, I don't know that negotiating it through this ordinance is really what, I don't want to get this ordinance caught up in that. So I think what she said, HR director can take her recommendation or thought, and they can kind of work on how they want to deal with the negotiation. But I don't want that to get mixed into the to the ordinance. It's clean, not trying to predetermine what the negotiation has to be or what it's going to be. I want them to have the free, given that they're said they're committed to it and told to get started. I don't want them to have any restrictions other than what's in the ordinance itself. So I prefer not to add that to the ordinance. That's something for HR, I think, to say, well, I heard what she talked about and talk to the unions about that, how they want to do it, how they all want to figure out the best way to do it.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes, I'm agreeing with Councilman Guy. I think that Councilwoman Walsh has a good idea, but I think that should be in the negotiations that Ms. Barnes makes, one of the suggestions that she could bring up. Because when you start taking something away from people, I think you may be bringing up more problems than you're going to have trying to get people to agree to another holiday and spending this much money. And it's always a point of money when the community wants something done. And that is very important, but I think acknowledging Juneteenth is important. And if we don't go forward now, what better time? I'm not thinking that times are going to get better or that we'll have the inertia to get it passed. And I just think it's good legislation. We should go ahead and pass it and let Ms. Barnes work it out. I do agree with the extending the starting date until May also. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh?
Well, if we don't do it here, I don't quite understand what Charlotte would have to negotiate. She can't negotiate down from what this would say, this ordinance says. She's not a council member. She can't come back and say, this is what I negotiated and you have to amend this. So I absolutely understand the importance of this, I would support it 100%. But the people that pay for these things, which is $244,000, are hurting very badly in our country and in our city right now. And I think to be able to save them another $244,000 for an extra holiday just isn't really acceptable right now.
Councilmember Johnson?
I do. I understand and listen to everyone's kind of take on this. And my take is I do like an option on there as to give Director Barnes the maximum flexibility with negotiating with the unions. Either it could be a trade-off holiday or it could be a new one. But I believe we do need to put the flexibility in there. I mean, because at the end of the day, we have to be fiscal stewards for the city. And, you know, I'm going to be realistic. Next year's budget's going to be horrific. You know, we're going to be facing significantly reduced revenues. I know people say, well, don't worry about that. But at the end of the day, on council, you have to worry about where the revenue comes from. So we need to figure out a way to do it. And certainly I'm here to do that. And I'm for passing this ordinance, but I think we need to give Director Barnes the flexibility in negotiating so that we're able to get this done. So, you know, and I don't want to put Director Barnes on a spot, but, you know, what I guess my pitch is, what would help you, Director Barnes, in terms of flexibility with negotiating this?
Obviously you want flexibility when you're negotiating because there's a give and take with negotiations. But that's a hard question to answer, right? Particularly, you know, when you don't negotiate and discuss strategy in a public forum. So that's kind of hard to answer your question. But flexibility is always good.
Just even talk about the process. I mean, has the sponsor of this ordinance, has he engaged with HR department in terms of talking to your team about what is necessary, what the ideas were, and try to come to some middle ground to work this out? Or is just this, or is this ordinance just kind of getting in your plate right here and now?
I wouldn't say it's getting in my plate right here, right now, because it was introduced several months ago. But other than at the committee level, there's been no conversation with me.
Has never messaged you, never sent anything about the bill?
I was asked about the fiscal impact, and I know the Office of Management and Budget worked and provided that, but I've had no personal conversation with Councilmember Guy about the piece of legislation, no.
Folks, we're going around and around here. Unless somebody has a specific language they want to add for the committee to consider.
I want clarification on a question. I think adding more limits Ms. Barnes' ability to negotiate. If we put in there to take we shouldn't need to amend this to take for her to take a holiday out. It says nothing about the other holidays. So I just think that's misinformation, that if she decides to negotiate that way, this would have to be amended. She can do anything she wants to with the rest of the holidays. This is just stating that this will be a holiday.
All I'm stating is that council members that want to make a change to the ordinance, they got to provide some language.
I'm not offering any change except
No, I know you're not, but I mean other members. They're going to have to offer some specific language. Mr. Adams?
Can I provide a little bit of clarification, Councilmember Frio?
Go ahead.
The floating holidays that were mentioned are not mentioned in this section. There's a separate section of code that speaks to floating holidays. So to accomplish what Councilmember Walsh was suggesting, you would eliminate one of the floating holidays in the other section of the code, replacing that with Juneteenth. So you would add the holiday Juneteenth here and go to the other section of the code and reduce that floating holiday. So the legislation as it passed would not increase the number of holidays that city employees had. if that's what Councilmember Walsh was suggesting.
Oh, thank you, but you wouldn't have to amend this. We would just have to amend the other piece of legislation if that was the route you negotiated for.
Other section of the code, correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr.
Yeah, I
Adams.
would like to, at least there's two parts that there's an agreement on. I'd like to go ahead and get those two taken care of.
All right, I'll try to read these. The additional amendment would be in section 40-332 at about line 5. We would add June 19th, comma, and then after Juneteenth, there would be a comma, and we would add known as Freedom Day. In section 2, we would delete October 1st, 2020 and add May 1st, 2021. And then in the synopsis, the same would take place. We would delete October 1, 2020 and add May 1, 2021. Can I have someone move that? That's the motion. Could I have someone move it?
Those are friendly amendments, so I'm accepting those as a sponsor.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second on the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Not voting? Okay. So I guess where we're at is to address Ms. Walsh's concern, which is a legitimate concern, especially for some of us that won't be here, that we might be creating some additional budgetary issues for you. We actually can't do anything with this ordinance. We would have to present another ordinance, which would delete certain language in the code dealing with floating holidays. And I think that's what Ms. Barnes mentioned. Is that correct, Ms. Barnes? Could you unmute your microphone? Could you unmute your microphone?
I'm sorry. Yes, I was offering clarification
Right.
for what Councilmember Walsh wanted. So.
Okay. Just for so for us to be able to look into this, you don't know off the top of your head what section of the code that is, do you?
I can get it
That's
for
okay.
you.
You can send it to us. You can
I'll
send
send it
it.
to you.
Okay. All right. Does that round out the discussions on this ordinance, or any other comments? I'm not seeing any. Just let me check to see if we have any changes. Now the participants are the same, so I'm assuming there's no comment from the public. So at this point, let me find my sheet here. I will accept the motion to move substitute number 1 to ordinance 20-043, an ordinance to amend chapter 40 of the city code to permanently add Juneteenth to city employee holidays with pay.
So moved.
Been moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And second on the question. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not voting? Okay. Thank you. We'll move to our next one, which is ordinance number 20-050, an ordinance to authorize and approve 2 one-year extensions of contract 20033 PW between the city of Wilmington, Allan Myers LP for street paving. And I believe we are joined by the Deputy Commissioner, Vince Carocha.
Point of order,
Yes.
Chairman, did you want to say that ordinance will be scheduled on the 19th on the calendar?
I'm sorry if I didn't say that. Yes, that will be, as far as I know, that will be on the November 19th agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Councilmember, I did put that information in the chat.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Where am I now? Mr. Croce.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So this is a ordinance to approve 2 one-year extensions to contract 20033 PW between the city of Wilmington and Allan Myers for street paving. We've been working with them for the last year. This amendment seeks to add 2 additional one-year options to the contract, and the contractor has agreed to hold their pricing for the extensions. They've been performing amicably for the last almost year that they've been doing work for us.
Will this work be taking place this calendar year, or will they be going into the next calendar year before they finish everything on each contract?
I believe the date on this one was February. It'll be the end of the first year. So the second year will start up in February of 2021 and continue for 1 year from that date.
Okay. All right. And you said the pricing stays the same?
That is correct. They've agreed to hold the unit pricing that was bid in the original contract. It's approximately 10 months ago.
Okay. All right. All right. We're dealing with ordinance 20-050 first, the street paving. Is there any questions for Mr. Carocha on this one? I'm not seeing any hands go up.
I have my hand up, but it's.
Councilmember Gray, I just saw it go up. Councilmember Gray.
I'm sorry. This is not for Mr. Croce, but I'm just going to say that this is the second time that I've had an ordinance that exceeds 200 pages, and I get it the day before. So I can't comment on these contracts because I don't have an opportunity to read them, but I'm not in any disagreement either. I'm just making that comment. We have to get better on that. Thank you.
Any other comments from council members? All right, I don't think the public hasn't changed. So I'll go ahead and accept a motion to move ordinance 20-050, an ordinance to authorize and approve two 1-year extensions of contract 20033 between the city of Wilmington, Allan Myers LP for street paving out of this committee and to the full council for a vote on November 19th.
So moved.
Been moved. Can I have a second?
Second.
Moving second on the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody not voting? Okay, next we'll move to ordinance 20-051, an ordinance to authorize and approve a 1-year extension of contract 2032 between the city of Wilmington and Diamond Materials LLC for concrete improvements. Is it the same comments, Mr. Carocha?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. This is a 1-year contract. I believe the anniversary date on this one's January of on the 1 year would be January of 2021. Concrete improvements is part of our street paving and rehabilitation program. Again, publicly bid contract. We've been working with the contractor for this particular contractor for a number of years now. They had held the previous contract as well, and they've been performing amicably.
Same pricing?
They have also agreed to hold their same pricing from the initial contract, yes.
Okay. Questions from council members? I don't see any. There's been no change in the public participation. So I will accept the motion to move ordinance 20-051, an ordinance to authorize and approve 2 1-year extensions of contract 20032 PW between the city of Wilmington Diamond Materials LLC for concrete improvements out of this committee into a full council for a vote on Thursday, November 19th.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and second on the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, not voting? Okay, council members, thank you. I appreciate your participation. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Thank you again, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, staff.